Welcome to WHRO's Weekly Edition. I'm Doug Boynton. We highlight the week's news and stories happening across Hampton Roads. There are some great stories ahead as we say goodbye to August. Chesapeake Bay crustaceans recently got a new neighbor. Stone crab has been documented for the first time in Virginia waters, and they may be here to stay. WHRO sat down with Dr. Nancy Welch, director at the Chesapeake Health Department, to discuss vaccinations as the school year begins. Tuition and fees are climbing at public universities all around Virginia. We've got the numbers on what that will cost. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Williamsburg is trying a different approach to connecting people without housing to services and shelter. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports how they're working to employ it.
The Houseless Outreach Partnership Engagement, or HOPE pilot program, has already been a success since it launched in May, says Roy Girardi. He's Williamsburg's point person for the program and has helped 10 people get housed through it already.
It's compassion. You're just treating people like they have value and worth.
Several days a week, Girardi and partners from Colonial Behavioral Health go to camps reported to the city or other places frequented by people experiencing homelessness to offer help and hear their stories. The pilot is running until October. The data it gathers will help Williamsburg officials better understand how effective street outreach can be and what resources the program would need to excel. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
Stone crabs typically hang around the Gulf and Southwest Atlantic coasts. WHRO's Catherine Hafner says they've never been officially documented in Virginia waters, at least not until now.
Inside a lab at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science in Gloucester, a few stone crabs sit in big tanks of water. They've got big, thick claws, as professor and crab expert Rom Lipsius points out.
These are extremely strong. You don't want to get caught. You might even be able to break your finger.
A local waterman caught these crabs around Norfolk's Willoughby Spit. Lipsius says that was unheard of until recently. Stone crabs are native to tropical waters, like down in the Caribbean and Florida.
As the waters have warmed, then they're moving up and they can handle the winter temperatures.
He says the creatures likely rode ocean currents into the Chesapeake Bay. Now that it's warm enough,
basically, I think the stone crab's here to stay.
It's actually good news. He says stone crabs are not likely to harm the ecosystem, but could be a new opportunity for crabbers. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Virginia Wesleyan University's decision to change its name to Baton University is facing some strong pushback from some alumni. WHRO's I-Ching Wang has the latest in the naming saga.
Alumni from Virginia Wesleyan University are shocked and upset over the name change. Erica Tashwar, a 2005 graduate with decades of experience in higher education, says it erases the school's history and spirit.
The biggest thing for us is that we want transparency. This feels very much like a top-down, closed-door decision where the entirety of the stakeholder population was not consulted in this decision-making process.
A petition called Stop Renaming Virginia Wesleyan University already received more than 4,000 signatures. The university says they respect different views but are moving forward with confidence. I-Ching Wang, WHRO News.
Our media partners in Richmond, Virginia Public Media, are using this summer to highlight all things that bring people joy. For many, the concept brings to mind a child's smile or an ice-cold lemonade on a hot summer day. But for one Richmond woman, it's rats. VPM video editor Adrienne McGibbon has the story.
When VPM News put a call out to listeners about what brings them joy, we got an unexpected message from Lena Maurer. Maurer has fostered rats in Richmond for 3 years, and she was eager to share the story of her passion project. So I reached out to her to find out what it was about rats that was so appealing to her. And I have to say, I didn't know what to expect. So I'm outside of her house. I'm getting ready to go in. I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous. I've never touched a rat before. In fact, I'm not sure I've ever actually seen a rat close up. Let's see how this goes. Hi.
Come on in.
Are you Lena?
The rats are just right here.
It's like a little rat resort. The first little guy I meet is Benny, or Ben for short.
What?
He isn't nervous to meet me at all.
How long have you had Ben?
About a year. Got him when he was already a grown-up, and he's neutered.
He's not going to try anything funny with me.
Yeah. Or with Maisie, his girlfriend.
Oh.
Morer is Benny and Maisie's fur mom. She's also the adoption coordinator for Second Chance Heroes, the region's rat rescue. She helps find homes for retired lab rats or rats that end up in animal shelters.
They get a bad rap for being like creepy, but they're so much beyond that.
Moore got her first pet rat in college after realizing she'd become allergic to their family's cat.
My boyfriend at the time was like, well, you think squirrels are cute. Have you ever thought about rats?
And she's been a fan ever since.
They have all the best things of cats and dogs, I feel like. They are clean like a cat. They kind of take baths with varying levels of success. They love you like dogs. They're just like small and sweet, and they all have such big personalities.
Big personalities with big appetites. But short lifespans, Moore says. They live just a few years, and that part's tough. But it's allowed her to adopt more rats.
I like that you get to know so many and love so many, and it's always like a dynamic landscape of their relationships with each other and with you.
Morer is expecting an influx of rat rescues from scientific research labs because of federal funding cuts.
You know, some of these labs have very high numbers of rats, and if they are interested in working to rehome, the amount of preparation needed for that, you know, can entail months of reaching out to various rescues and groups and shelters and seeing what they can do.
She relies on a network of foster homes to take care of the animals until she can get them into permanent homes. Morer hopes more people would consider adopting rats.
By caring for a rat, you make so much more of a difference because so many people don't care for the rats.
All right, Lena.
Thanks for meeting the rats.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for introducing me to rats.
Bye, Maisie! I gotta admit, the guys are kind of cute. They got the little fingers with their little fingernail claws. And seriously, talking to Lena about her rats and just hearing her joy brought me so much joy. I don't know if I want to have rats in my own house, but I think I can understand why people might want to have rats in their house. Adrienne Horma-Gibbon, VPM News.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, a local civil rights leader recently celebrated her 100th birthday in Virginia Beach. But first, Virginia decriminalized marijuana in 2021, but the substance remains illegal to sell. Democrats in the Virginia General Assembly passed a legal retail market bill earlier this year, only to have the effort vetoed by Governor Glenn Youngkin. They're now working toward a new package of legislation, as WVTF's Brad Kuttner explains.
Senator Louise Lucas wants to use tax revenue raised by a legal retail weed market in Virginia to cover federal spending cuts. We have an inescapable responsibility to generate and create a long-term and sustainable source of revenue to safeguard core programs and services, the Senate president said in a text message Thursday morning. Lucas, who is a partner in a cannabis outlet in her Portsmouth district, has helped pass bills for retail legalization for years, but Governor Glenn Youngkin vetoed it both times it landed on his desk, citing children's safety concerns. Questions remain as to whether Virginia's next governor would sign such a bill. Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger said in a statement she supports a retail market that, quote, prioritizes public safety and grows the Virginia economy. Requests for comments sent to Republican candidate Winsome Earl-Sears' campaign were not returned. In Richmond, I'm Brad Kuttner.
Budget cuts are disrupting fisheries research in North Carolina. Mary Helen Moore reports for the NC Newsroom.
Scientists have trawled through the Pamlico Sound netting fish and crustaceans since 1987. They monitor what type of species live there, how big they're getting, and whether populations are healthy. This year, though, the research vessel won't go out. Scientist Doug Rader says the news is catastrophic. He's on the Marine Fisheries Commission.
We, together, need to make sure the General Assembly is aware of the consequences of the chronic underfunding of this set of programs. It's too important to our economy and our culture and our way of life.
Protections for blue crab, flounder, and shrimp can all be traced back to the Pamlico Sound Survey. Mary Helen Moore, North Carolina Newsroom, Capitol Bureau.
A woman of color will lead the Supreme Court of Virginia for the first time in the Commonwealth's history. WHRO's Ryan Murphy breaks down that historic moment.
Cleo E. Powell will be Virginia's next Chief Justice, the Virginia State Bar says. Powell has been on the state Supreme Court for the last 14 years. A graduate of University of Virginia's Law School, she became Senior Assistant Attorney General during former AG Mary Sue Terry's first term. Powell spent a few years as counsel for Virginia Power, now Dominion. She was first elected by the General Assembly as a judge in 1993 and has served at every level of the state's court system. Powell became the first black woman on the Supreme Court of Virginia in 2011. She will succeed Chief Justice S. Bernard Goodwin, who is set to retire in January after more than 18 years on the court. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
Public health officials in Virginia are pushing for students to get vaccinated before the school year begins. WHRO's I-Ching Wang sat down with Dr. Nancy Welch, the director at the Chesapeake Health Department, to talk about vaccination.
Dr. Welch, thanks for sitting down with us. Tell us why it is so important for students to be vaccinated.
Because it's very effective in preventing disease. That's it in a nutshell. Now, it may take a few days for it to reach that maximum height of protection. But that protection is very high when you get the vaccines. And that's really what we want, is to protect the public.
You grew up in a time when vaccines weren't yet available. How does that influence the way you promote vaccination?
It's a drive to try to help people understand the diseases. I have friends who died as teenagers from meningococcal meningitis, friends who were paralyzed from polio. I've held hands with mothers as their child died from measles pneumonia, sat with mothers as their child was coughing with pertussis and had pneumonia. So I think sometimes we push the schedule because we see the data that shows how it prevents disease, but I have an additional reason for encouraging it, because I've seen the deaths and because I've held the hands of mothers as their child died.
And vaccine skepticism has grown in recent years. What are some most common misconceptions you hear, and how do you respond to them?
Well, of course, a common misconception, I think, that leads to this, because people have not seen the disease, they're not comparing any risk of the vaccine with risk of death from the disease. And there is no comparison, I assure you. As I said, no vaccine's 100%. There may be tiredness, there may be headache, there may be soreness. So there can be certainly some of those kinds of complications from the vaccine, but they still work.
So what are some specific steps that the VDH and the Chesapeake Health Department are taking to make vaccines more accessible?
Well, certainly from the health department perspective, as I said, we hold vaccination clinics, and they can come into the health department and get vaccines. If they can't get them or can't make an appointment with a private physician, come to us. We have vaccination clinics all the time, and we do community events, and we do publicize that to try and make it available.
And what should parents know about catching up if their child has missed some doses?
They can come to the health department or any of the clinics, and we have all the information that describes, therefore, what shots they should have and when, based on what they've missed and timing in between. Now, they may have to have 2 or 3 shots at once to move things along quicker, because you can do that. And like we do recommend, some of these are not required, but this is the ages that you can get them, like HPV is not required. But we strongly recommend it because it's certainly from 7th grade on that children become curious, and you don't want them to be exposed to something that could be a problem.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
Tuition and fees are climbing again at Virginia's public colleges and universities. The numbers, here's WHRO's Barry Graham.
A new report from the State Council of Higher Education says in-state undergraduates will pay an average of more than $14,800 in tuition and fees this fall, up 2.7% from last year. When room and board are added, the total comes to more than $28,000 for students at four-year schools. Virginia families now shoulder about 42% of education cost, while the state covers 58%, below the state's goal of two-thirds. Officials say transfer programs and financial aid can still provide more affordable paths to a degree. Barry Graham, WHRO News.
Civil rights pioneer Inez Jones recently celebrated her 100th birthday in Virginia Beach. Here's more from WHRO's Denise Watson.
In 1951, Inez Jones secretly helped a group of students at the segregated Moton High School in Farmville organize a strike. The students were tired of the school's poor condition.
Students just got up and started walking around, but my husband tried to tell them, you have to get back. But they kept right on going.
The case went on to be one of 5 that became the landmark Brown v. Board of Education of 1954, which ruled that racial segregation in schools was unconstitutional. Denise Watson, WHRO News.
And freelance reporter Vicki Friedman contributed to this report.
I'm Michelle Hankerson, news director at WHRO Public Media. This week, we say goodbye to a familiar voice. Doug Boynton has joined you on the drive home since he came to WHRO in 2021. He was the first person to recap the week when WHRO debuted Weekly Edition last year. And now, Doug is retiring for the 3rd time after decades in the radio news business. Before he takes some time off to travel and relax, WHRO staff looks back on how Doug Boynton changed our little corner of the world.
It's 45 degrees at 6:04. This is WHRO News. I'm Doug Boynton. Shad is called America's... I started reading the news right off the wire for a little radio station in Saline, Michigan when I was 17. I was a senior in high school. And they also had me cover the city council meetings for them. And so I did that. That morphed into more or less a weekday job. I used to go read the news for a couple of hours after school, Monday through Friday. And what I really wanted to do was be a disc jockey, and I got that chance at that same little radio station. I was awful. I was a horrible disc jockey, and there was a trial of a serial killer that had been arrested in Ann Arbor, and his trial was the summer between my senior year in high school and my first year of college. And I covered the trial, and I got to hang out with real news journalists, broadcast, print, and I said, that's what I want to do. And so I did that. I got my start here at WHRO by reading for The Voice for those who can't, for one reason or another, can't read normal printed material. And I told Jim Holzer at The Voice that, once we get to November and I've got some travel out of the way, I would love to be able to volunteer again reading for The Voice.
Doug is an old school news reporter, and he really infused that into our new newsroom when he came to WHRO. He always had really high expectations, and to reach them in Doug's eyes was really very simple. Just come talk to him, and he'll show you how to do it.
This is Katherine Hafner, environmental reporter with WHRO News. The first few times I went live on air, which was with Doug, he helped me to take a deep breath and slow down so the audience could really understand what I was saying. Anytime I recorded with Doug, I knew I was in good hands because he asked insightful questions and genuinely always wanted to learn more about the subject at hand.
Hi, I'm WHRO reporter Nick McNamara. Where to start? Doug's a big part of the reason why I'm at WHRO in the first place. When I was moving out here from Kansas, I was not very familiar with the media ecosystem, and I was trying to get the lay of the land. I reached out to a few different people, and Doug was the first person to respond to me. And he was very gracious, and through our conversations, he also got me in touch with Jim Holzer. I started volunteering and helping out with the WHRO Voice at the time. Also through him, I got in touch with Michelle Hankerson and began freelancing for the organization. And from there, things just snowballed into eventually me getting hired as a full-time reporter. Honestly, without Doug's mentorship and his guidance and just his personability, I'm not sure if I would have found my way as quickly as I had. I can never thank him enough for that. He really helped me out at a time that I was uncertain about my future, about where I was going. I was in a new place, trying to find my niche here, and he was a big part of making me feel comfortable, and I'll always thank him for that. Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Happy retirement, man.
I'm told this space is reserved for some parting comments as I head for, yes, a third retirement. Michelle called me old school. I suppose I am in a way. Journalists among us will know that the number 30 used to mark the end of a story and that the beginning of a story was called the lead, spelled L-E-A-D and not L-E-D-E. When I turned in my notice, I told Chuck Dowd simply there are things undone that I intend to finish. I recently bought a box of envelopes at Costco. It took me 25 years to finish the last box, so I suppose I have a lifetime supply now. There is a grandchild I intend to bounce on my knee and a video genealogy project I plan to complete. And I will still be around WHRO. I have promised to be back as a volunteer for The Voice and to help out during pledge weeks, starting in December. Year after year, WHRO is voted one of the top places to work in Hampton Roads, and I can vouch for that. I have not worked at a place that is kinder, more inclusive, and understanding of the balance between working and living a full life. And for that, I'm grateful. Thank you to Chuck Dowd, who leads the team, and to Michelle Hankerson, the news director, also to Jim Holzer, who manages the WHRO Voice and who first opened the door. Should you want to stay in touch, I'm sure you'll figure it out. Thank you for listening. Please continue to support WHRO and public media. It is more important now than ever. You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Catherine Hafner, Ryan Murphy, Denise Watson, Yicheng Wang, Michelle Hankerson, Barry Graham, and Nick McNamara. WVTF's Brad Kuttner, Mary Helen Moore with the NC Newsroom, and VPM's Megan Pauly. Also Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed, and you can get news updates at WHRO.org, the WHRO smartphone app, and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton. Stay safe. Be well.